What's up guys? I put together a top 10 list of jobs in construction. I've been working in construction now on large sites for about 10 years, so I have a fairly good idea of who arrives at work happy and who seems to be getting up on the wrong side of the bed every day. One other thing, I don't think you'll expect what number one is. So there's a couple of things we need to take into account on this list. Most importantly, why do you go to work every day in construction is to earn money. So that's going to be one of our key factors. Who makes the most money and how much training does it take to get there? But we've also got to consider construction is a very dangerous place to be. I think it falls just behind agriculture in the most dangerous places to work. An injury can come in many different ways. You could fall off something, you could bang into something, you could drop something and it injures you. You could, somebody else could drop something onto you. There's an immediate risk and many moving parts around you. There's plant and machinery, but there's also the kind of slow things that damage your health. Inhalation of dust and silicos, which can damage your lung. We've also got to think about how is our body going to react to the same kind of work day in, day out. Are you on your knees a lot? Jobs like plumbing, you end up bent over a lot. There's a lot that can go wrong in construction. If you do a physical job, you're not going to be doing it forever. You need kind of an exit plan. So with those factors in mind, I've come up with a top 10 list of jobs that you can take in construction as a tradesman. A couple of caveats here. We're going to use day in, day out work on a large development project. So we're going to assume some continuity of work, and we're going to assume that you're not some kind of super specialist. If I say you're an electrician, you're not a specialist home automation expert, you are not a lift engineering electrician, you are what we'd call a house basher. So without further ado, number 10 on the list, the humble labourer. The labourer really is the first step on the construction ladder, the first rung. Day rate, about £80 a day. I started off labouring £50 a day, was then promoted to also a labourer, £60 a day, and the labourers, when I hired them, we top out about £80 a day, which is around / just over minimum wage. Now labouring is hard work. You're sweeping, so you're in dusty, horrible environments, you do all the donkey work, you do the stuff other people don't want to, you get handy with a shovel and a wheelbarrow and you move and lift things around. So it's taxing on the body, you don't tend to get a lot of respect, you don't get a lot of autonomy. So that's why it's number 10 on my list. So it doesn't really matter which trade you're in or you're just a general labourer. Labourer kind of is where you start, but it's not particularly where you want to end up. Okay, number 9, groundworker. Now, groundworkers tend to earn between about £120 to £160 a day. And for that money, what you'll be expected to do is get very mucky. So you're literally working in the ground. So shovels, spades, digging, mixing concrete, pouring concrete. I would say it's one of the more injury-prone trades in construction. Very, very taxing on the body. Now, there's more room for progression. Now, where we have the labourer, you kind of just stay a labourer. You can be a groundworks foreman. You can specialise as you can join like a concreting gang. So there is a bit of progression there. But again, very, very hard work. And I would say probably 99% of the time, you're going to be out in the elements. It's cold. You're going to get snowed on, rained on. In the summer it's hot, in the winter it's cold, it's generally uncomfortable, and you're going to get covered in muck. So that's why it hits number 9. Number 8, scaffolder. So I think some people would argue that this is too low down the list, but for me, because you're outside, again, you're always outside. You might do a bird cage at the top of a stair core. Otherwise, you're outdoors, you're in the element. Once again, you're getting rained on, you're lifting those heavy poles around, tying and fixings, doing lifts outside. You really are open to the elements again. Wages, 160 to 180. There's a bit of progression with this one. So you'll start off as an apprentice or a trainee. You get your certification. It doesn't take that long. And you can become a scaffolder once you're certified. But again, you're working outside. It's windy. It's cold. Personally, I would rather be indoors or be able to have a mix of indoor and outdoor if I enjoy being outdoors. But again, taxing on the body, injury prone, dangerous because we're working at height. Number 7, bricklayer. Now in this, I'm going to include your kind of facade guys, window installers, anybody who's kind of working on the external facade of the building. And I particularly say bricklayer is taxing on the body. You're bent over a lot, you're in awkward spaces, you're reaching around. Higher up than the hod carrier, who is the labourer equivalent of the bricklayer, who carries the bricks around from place to place. That is not a pleasant job at all. Your bricklayer, it takes skill, but what gives the bricklayer an advantage here, and their wage is slightly higher, it's 160 to 200 perhaps, 200 a day on the high side. If they're on day works, you can earn more. If you are a particularly good bricklayer and you can lay a lot of bricks in a day, you'll do well. But again, you're mostly outdoors, You do get to come indoors sometimes, which is nice, but you are mostly outdoors. You're getting battered by the elements and you're lifting heavy things, especially if you're doing blocks. Number 6 on the list, and we're going to go indoors now, the painter. So why I put them in number 6? You get to work indoors. It's purely that. You can paint things indoors, but not just indoors, you're right at the end of the project. So lights should be on, the heating should be on, it should be clean before you go in there, so it's not majorly dusty. Now, wages unfortunately are quite low, between 120 to 140 a day, and there's not really much scope for progression as a painter. You might go up to painting foreman, having your own gang, but that's really about it. A lot of the time people let you work with a radio on, which is nice, and you're working in a group or as a gang. So again, it's quite a nice environment to be in. The old saying does go, if you can pee, you can paint, though, which means that there's not really a high barrier to entry. That's not to say that painters aren't skilled, because they are, but there's low barriers to entry. You don't need particularly long training time, and you also don't need a lot of equipment. Easy to get into, I suppose easy to get out of as well. Painters, solid number 6, good trade, and we're finally indoors now. Number 5, dry liners and plasterers. Now, I put these guys at number 5 because they earn more than the painters, around 160-ish mark inside. It's not as nice as the painter if you're doing dry boarding, dry lining. It's a bit dustier, but you are indoors. The only real negative I would say to dry lining, and I've done a lot of dry lining in the past, is rock wool insulation. You know, that fibrous stuff, it gets in your skin. You don't want it to get in your lungs, and it just makes you itch. So pretty unpleasant stuff, but you get to be indoors. You're not lifting majorly heavy weights. Okay, plasterboards are heavy. Sometimes you've got to put them on the ceiling and you're messing around. But overall, I would say it's a good indoor trade. A bit of skill, there's progression, you can go further with it, and as you get quicker, you'll earn more money. Number 4, carpenter. Now, I put these guys higher than the dry liners because I think there's a bit more skill to it. There's a bit more brain power required being a carpenter. There's a bit of problem solving with it. I think that makes people happier, actually, when they use their brain a bit more at work. It seems like the carpenters, for whatever reason, are always in a better mood on site. So personal happiness, I put that as higher up the ladder. Again, you're mostly indoors, using your brain. There's some progression into being a joiner, around £160 a day in wages. It's a solid trade. Number 3, electricians. So pay jumps up a bit here. I'd say about £200 a day is a good wage for an electrician. You start off as an apprentice, make your way up to an electrician. There's some training involved. Again, you're indoors. You're not doing majorly heavy lifting. Sometimes it's a bit awkward. Risk of electric shock. Otherwise, electrician, I think, is a very good trade to get into. Number 2 on the list, similar to the electrician, I put these two together really. The plumber. Now, plumbers tend to earn a little bit more. I think the reason for this is they tend to do 200 to 220. I think it goes a lot higher if you can do good price work and you're efficient. The reason I put it above the electrician is because you don't have to do as much paperwork. Electricians can get stuck to sometimes doing paperwork and it brings down their efficiency, and there's no real way of doing it quicker. So plumbers, once you're on price work, I think there's more scope there to increase your wage. They earn a similar amount to electricians. The only real downside I will say is, okay, sometimes you're in an awkward position again. You do have to touch poop sometimes because you are dealing with SVP, swan vent pipes. Other than that, plumbing is a very good trade to get into. There's progression with it. There's specialisms you can get into, heating engineering being one, and they're in high supply. There's constantly shortages of plumbers in the UK, and they can command a good wage, especially for call-outs. Okay, number 1 on the list. And this is quite an unusual one, but I thought they deserved the number 1 spot. The Magic Man. Sometimes they're known as Magic Men, French polishers, glass polishers as well. They're the guys that come in at the end and fix everything. So if you've got like a dink in a sink, they'll fix it. Scratch on a door, on timber floor, they'll sort it out. They're kind of like little artists, and they'll come with their little paintbrush and putty, and they'll fill in little dinks and gaps and make the project look nice. I think on a £24 million project, I once spent £80,000 on Magic Men, which was a bit embarrassing. Everything was bespoke joinery and it got knocked about and it had to be done. But yeah, it's a great trade. You're indoors, you earn very good money, up to about £300 a day, and it has a low barrier to entry as well. You need some artistic talent, you need a little bit of training, but not a lot. I mean, you could be qualified within, I think there are like 48-hour courses. Not to say that that's the best course you could do, but it is possible to start. You won't necessarily start on the 300, but as you get more efficient, you can certainly get there. Only thing I would say about the Magic Man is there's not continuity of work. Nobody will ever be like, right, I want you on my site for the next 2 months. It'll be, right, I need you here Friday, I need you here Tuesday, and then that's it. And then 2 weeks later, you're going to be there for another day. So there's not good continuity of work. But apart from that, it is a very solid trade. And what a lot of magic men do is magic men will be their kind of number one priority trade, and then they'll do silicon or they'll do painting on the side as well to keep them working 5 days a week. That's why it's my number one. It's indoors, usually heating's on, lights are on, it's comfortable. You probably spend most of the time working on your own, but there's nothing wrong with that. So that's my top 10 list. Let me know if you agree, disagree, if you think I've missed out a crucial trade. I know this is only a snapshot, kind of a couple of trades in there. But if you think your particular trade deserves a higher spot, let me know. Next time I'll cover kind of white-collar professionals, kind of degree-based construction jobs, and we'll see how they rank up as well. Over and out. Teeny's just come back from her walk and she's tired. Oh, you're tired. Oh, you're tired.